Hello, I'm still sick and I'm running out of battery, so I'm going to try to be quick about this. But I just recently read something for somebody. I was kind of beta reading for somebody. I'm not going to tell you who the name of the person was or whatever, because, like, obviously we shouldn't really judge anybody off, like, first draft. I don't know what draft this was or whatever, but, like, I had a complaint about something and I wanted to discuss that. And that thing I see an awful lot popping up in fiction with the trend towards amoral or morally ambiguous or moral gray area characters, and that is flavorless main characters. So to start this off, I'm going to introduce you to a lovely tea that has to do with our flavorless main characters. So hopefully you can see this tea. This is made from a Asian butterfly pea flower, and it is like, I'm sure you can't see it in the video, like how bright blue this is, but it's just like beautiful iridescent blue. Looks real pretty and stuff. It's all shiny from the outside. Looks great. It has no taste whatsoever. It's flavorless as hell. So I have to add like mint or something to it to give it some taste. So we're going to talk about not making your characters like that, where they sound good and they look good from the outside, because they're not like the stereotypical paragon that people are a little bit sick of because it's overdone too. But if you do these morally ambiguous or moral gray area or amoral characters, you run the risk of making them not human. And I ran into a character when I was beta reading for somebody who shall remain nameless recently. And I gave them this feedback, and I tried to be as tactful as possible. But basically, they did that. The voices were great. I loved the way they did their world building and stuff without info dumping. Like, they did it in such a good way that I'm like, I can totally imagine this. This was like, I had like exact visuals of everything. The only complaint I had, aside from this particular character thing that we're going to talk about, was that there was an awful lot of introspection. But even then, after I thought about that later, I'm like, yeah, but they're in a prison cell, so what else are they going to do? So I kind of forgave that and got over the fact that there was a lot of introspection. But anyway, character's voice was great. I laughed multiple times in the chapter and stuff, and the character was very witty and stuff, but I realized, like, partway through the chapter, I'm like, okay, so when are you gonna drop the bombshell? I was like, kept expecting them to give me something that made me give a shit about this character's well-being, and they kept not giving it to me. I'm like, this person isn't like a human to me unless they have some sort of like reason to live. And they even kept saying stuff that basically implied they don't care whether they live or not, or whether they're stuck there and they've got like 18 months left or whatever. So right there's not a sense of urgency either, because they're saying they're just in this prison cell for the next 18 months. I'm like, I want to at least know that they're going to be executed tomorrow or something, so that I either care about them getting out, or if I don't care about them getting out still, at least I'm like, well, maybe they'll kill off this character real quick and then I don't have to listen to them whining anymore. But anyway, I kept waiting for some sort of subtle hint as to why I should give a damn about this character's well-being, why I should care if maybe they can get out of this jail cell or be pardoned or something, and nothing happened as far as that. And I want to give an example of two different characters from popular stories / novels that are basically similar to this character, but were done in a way that did humanize them and made me care about their well-being. So the first one being Disney's Aladdin in the Aladdin movie. If you had gotten rid of this 130-second like snippet scene in the Aladdin movie, the whole movie and the whole like tone towards the character would have been incredibly different. So we've got Aladdin, we've got him running and escaping from the like police force in Agrabah, who, sorry, I'm like gargling in my throat because I need some tea. Okay. Anyway, so we got him running away from these guys with sabers. So immediately you've got a sense of urgency because you've got the idea that these police would actually hurt him. So, one thing, we actually care because he's in immediate danger, even though we don't know anything about him yet. It's not that he's just sitting in a prison cell, or you think there's some pansy police officers that aren't actually going to do anything to them if he catches them, except for give him a free night's sleep in a jail cell. You know, like, you're actually concerned they might, like, chop off his hands or something. So you got that to start off with. He's a little bit cocky with them and stuff, which is interesting and intriguing. And so was this character in this other story. He was cocky and kind of witty and funny and stuff, but that only carries you so far, because after a while that just starts sounding like you're a cocky asshole. Anyway, we've got that scene. He runs through the streets. He steals food. He does have the scene where he saves the princess from getting her hand chopped off for stealing an apple because she didn't realize that's what she was doing. And I think that's actually a little bit later in the story. I don't recall. I haven't watched it in a while. But anyway, even that isn't all that humanizing because she's hot, and like it could be an ulterior motive that he had for like saving her, you know? But then you've got this scene where he worked real hard to steal this food for him and Abu, and they end up escaping the police. And then shortly after that, he's about to like eat some of the food, and he sees these like starving children, and he gives like the biggest part of the food that he stole to these starving kids. And that is the humanizing thing. If you had taken out that little detail where he gave some of his like hard stolen food that he needs clearly to these children that needed it, if you had taken that out and then had him go back to his little cubby hole where he starts singing about, well, why don't people see down into the real me and how I'm special and stuff, and we'd be thinking, but you're not. You're kind of just like a narcissistic douchebag who's like evading the police who are just trying to do their job and keeping you from stealing from like cart vendors and merchants who need that food to survive too, and money to survive. And you're a little bit narcissistic and delusional, thinking that like you're special and stuff, but we haven't seen that you're actually special. If you had gotten rid of that little bit where he gives that food to those starving children, then we aren't as invested in his character, and he just kind of comes off as one-dimensional and just like, yeah, he's like amusing and witty and cocky and stuff, but that's all he seems to have. And yeah, he's a skilled thief, but yeah, that's all he seems to have. But when you see that third dimension, that he actually cares more about helping other people than himself, then that makes him a more well-rounded character, and we actually care about his well-being because he's actually a nice person, and he's a good person to some extent. I mean, that's actually probably partially why the scene where he like sneaks up to the princess's bedroom with the magic carpet and stuff is less creepy, is because we've already had it established, oh wait, this is actually kind of a decent guy. He's not like gonna be that much of a creeper if he's like giving starving children food that he stole, you know? So that's example number one. Example number two is Jean Valjean from Les Miserables. So in Les Miserables, we've got Jean Valjean, and it's established that basically he got sent to jail for a relatively short term as far as like prison terms are doled out, for stealing bread for himself. I believe it was his sister and her sister's starving kid, to try to keep them alive, and he broke into a person's house to do that. Now, already we're set up with the kind of sort of feeling where we're like, again, starving children are involved here. We're kind of set up with this feeling of, we feel deep down inside that it's somewhat unjust, even though he broke the law and stuff, that he's in jail in the first place. So when we learn that he tried to run and escape and it ended up extending his prison sentences, you kind of understand why he would have tried to escape, because it wasn't, deep down you kind of feel like it wasn't totally fair for him to be in there in the first place. And then when he finally does get out, he's trying to be a good person and not break the law, even though he like, it would be easier for him to get by if he did, as long as he doesn't get caught. And you're rooting for him because of that. So he's humanized, and when he does choose to finally like give up and break the law because he's just kind of pounded down into the pavement, after not being able to find a job, he's been traveling around trying to like pull his life back together and stuff, you're like, no, don't do that, you were trying to be a good person, and you actually care about his humanity and like his salvation and stuff. So it's not that he's just a thief and he doesn't have any redeeming qualities. Like, you actually care about him turning to the path of doing the right thing and stuff, because that's what he's been trying to do, and he's struggling through it, and you care about that struggle. And I just didn't have that in this chapter that I read for somebody. Like, what I needed was some sort of hint that, like, either like this guy was abandoned as a baby. Like, oh, another character is Bean from Ender's Shadow. I love Bean. That's like one of my favorite books, by the way. Like, yeah, he like literally condones the murder of like a fellow kid on the streets, but you get why, and you actually care about his well-being, and you see the other children like starving there and stuff. Again, starving children. Apparently, I think starving children like make everything forgivable. But sorry, hold on a second. But anyway, I needed to know that either like he got caught stealing, not because he was just being an asshole and stealing from some prince, which is how he got into jail in this, which is just kind of stupid thievery, because it's just, you're bound to get caught, which is another thing that I'm like, you're not even smart. I don't like you because of that. But anyway, if he had been like stealing to save his little medicine, to save his little brother's life or something, because they couldn't afford it, or if after he got caught pickpocketing or something, and while he was in jail and there was this attack on the city that it talks about, his mother had died in the conflict, and now he's feeling horrible that he wasn't there to try to protect her, or something like that. I needed something to like make him sympathetic, and there was just nothing. There was no remorse. There was just him kind of feeling sorry for himself, but I don't feel sorry for him, so it just came off as whiny. Don't write that kind of character. Like, give your audience an actual reason to like feel bad for the character. Oh, another example of something that did, in my opinion, did a bad job of this recently. They at least tried to make their character sympathetic. But in the new Venom movie, which I still enjoyed, I got over the fact that I didn't find the main character sympathetic. And they tried multiple things, but they took too long to put those things in there to make the character sympathetic, which is the problem. With what I read, the whole first chapter didn't have anything to make him sympathetic. I don't want to read past the first chapter. But Venom did this, but they kind of like threw it in as an afterthought. Is they had this character, and he's a journalist, and he gets in, basically he loses his job because he keeps trying to cover these hard-hitting stories where, yes, he's being honest and he's trying to uncover these like bad things that are happening, but he's an asshole about it. And he like ruins his relationship with his girlfriend because he does this stupid, sketchy thing. And you don't feel bad for him. I'm like, yes, I know you're trying to uncover the truth, which I know is your attempt at making him sympathetic. And then, yes, even when he has no money and stuff, he's giving like $20 bills to a homeless person he knows, because you're trying to make him sympathetic. But you took too long to do that. And he was too much of an asshole in his attempts to do the right thing. It just came off as his own arrogance, not that he actually cared about doing the right thing. So don't write those kind of characters. Like, I urge you, do not write flavorless main characters that are just witty or charismatic and stuff, but that's all they have going for them. They don't have any sort of human element or like roundness to their character where, yeah, they're all upbeat and sarcastic and like they like brush off like insults and stuff like it's no big deal, without like showing that there's a deeper element to them than that. Otherwise it's boring and I don't want to read it, and I think a lot of other people don't want to read it either. Anyway, this kind of just turned into a big old long rant. I'm gonna let you go because my voice is giving out and I have to work tomorrow. So I'm gonna talk to you guys later, and you guys have a great night.